Hi everybody, I'd really like to talk to you today about sexual abuse. Now, I know this is going to be extremely hard for some of you if this has happened to you. And so I want you to look at the numbers for Lifeline that I'll be posting up here for you. But I want to first of all try and remove the guilt and shame that a lot of people feel because of sexual abuse by someone that they know really well, family, friend, their own father, their own mother, or someone who's in the neighbourhood, or a friend of your brother's or sister or whatever. Now, why people feel really guilty, and this is what I've found over all the time I've counselled, is that when the sexual abuse started, quite often, if there was no pain involved and it wasn't a violent rape, people actually, as children, have enjoyed the physical sensations of what I still call sexual abuse, because you were the child or the teenager and the adult should know better. However, what happens is that it starts off with a grooming process, and that's what I want to talk to you about today. So this first video is going to help you understand why perhaps you ended up doing that willingly with the perpetrator. And then the way that it changed, the relationship changed, and then when you wanted to get out of it, you couldn't. So let me talk about the 7 stages of grooming. Now, first of all, the perpetrator looks for the victim. They will look at the vulnerable children. For example, if there's a child who can't make friends or has low self-esteem, this is what the perpetrator looks for. Now, you know what I mean by perpetrator, the person who has abused you. Also look around, when are the parents out? Do they leave the children at home alone? The second stage is gaining trust and access. And you might be getting on the bus to go to school and there's somebody there and let me do that for you. Okay, I'll do that. So they try to form a relationship that will give them trust, your trust or your family's trust, and then gain access to you. For example, the way that they could get close to your family is perhaps after soccer, they say to your mother, oh look, I'll help you put those in the car, don't worry, I can see that's such a heavy bag, I'll help you. So here again, they're trying to gain trust and access. Often they'll try to gain your parents' trust before they actually gain your trust, so that they can get access to the child. What happens is then you develop this trusting bond, and you start thinking of that person as someone you can trust, and so does your family, if they've been playing on your family as well. From there they go to stage 3 of the grooming process, and this is where they use manipulation. So they start hanging around and always offering to do things for you, do things for your family. They might give gifts or offer money when someone's in a bad situation. It could be, oh look, my mum wouldn't give me $10 to go to this. They'll say, oh shh, don't tell mum, here's the $10. So this is how they start to gain trust. And with the family, they also start to become helpful. Oh, I'll do that for you. I'll drive them to school. Don't worry, I can vacuum that for you today. Oh, look, I'll pick the kids up from school. I'll help you carry those heavy groceries into the car. So here they start to move in and try to become indispensable to your family or yourself, where you think you need them to be around because they're so helpful and they're so nice to you. Stage 4 is when they start to isolate you. So they might start saying, look, I'll pick her up from school or him from school. For example, your parent might be doing something and they'll say, oh, look, don't worry, I can do that for you. I'll go and I'll take her to the shops to buy some goodies down the shop. And don't worry, I'll pay for it as well. And so what happens is they're trying to now isolate the child to get them alone. Stage 5 is where they start creating secrecy around your relationship. Nobody understands but me. Hey, listen, I know your parents don't understand, but I understand you. And look, you don't tell anybody, don't tell anybody about us, because what'll happen, they'll think you're weird or crazy, or something's wrong with you. They're going to think there's something wrong with you. I've even had a client who told me the perpetrator was telling her that if you tell anyone, they're going to put you back into the mental health unit. Okay, and they're going to think you're crazy. They also might threaten to harm you or a pet or someone else that you love, and if you share your private information with them. This is a big secrecy that starts. And often they will then threaten to harm someone or something that you love if you tell anybody. So in stage 6, they sexualise the relationship and they start to tend to rub your back or touch you, and even if it makes you feel a bit uncomfortable, because you've got to trust this person and because you know you shared all these secrets with them, you might let that happen. And the rubbing and the touching happens more so. They'll also might set up scenarios where it's all right to be naked in front of each other. Take you down to a river, for example, on the weekend, and hey, you can swim naked and it's all right for me to also swim naked. This is fine, you know, just don't tell your family about it because they won't understand. So this is, again, you know, continuing all the other steps of keep creating secrecy and also now starting to sexualise the relationship. For example, if it's a coach, you know, you might start to say, oh, it's okay, we can go into the locker room together. It's okay if I change in front of you and, you know, be naked. That's quite normal in the locker room. And these are the things that start to sexualise the relationship. They make nakedness normal to be around you, that it's okay to see each other's bodies. If the child is the victim, the sexual predator will play on the child's normal curiosity and questions about the body. You know, this is for this and this is for that. And this starts then to become a sexual relationship where they're showing you, know, this is quite normal to put my hands on your breast or my hands down below your pants. I mean, that's exactly what happens. And so they're starting this is the whole grooming process. And finally, stage 7 is when they start controlling the whole relationship. So once the sexual relationship has started, they will use that as a leverage to keep us controlled and within their power. So what happens, you know, for example, if it's like a financial thing where they're paying for a lot of things, they'll use these sort of things to actually keep you in their control. So, for example, if they're a boss or your teacher, you might be afraid to go and talk about it because they've got this control over you. They could actually fail you, affect your life at school. If it's the soccer coach, they'll do something to get you out of the team. If it's a boss, for example, at work, and you could be 15, you could be, 14, 13, a boss might threaten you. You'll lose your job if you tell anybody. So everything they do together is controlled by this person who's actually got the victim in their power and they're controlling them. And look, I have to tell you that some of my clients, the sexual relationship didn't stop even when they're 20 and 22. Because of the power of this perpetrator to be able to say, if you tell anybody, well, this is what's going to happen to you. And also that, you know, they'll all think you're crazy. They won't be looking at me, they'll be looking at you. And you know what? You enjoyed it. You enjoyed it to start off, so I'll just tell them that you enjoyed it. Often what will happen, they might say to you, that you brought this on yourself, and this is where the shame and guilt also happens, because you have entered like this sexual relationship that's not painful and terrible, and at times it's very pleasurable, because, you know, anyone that touches a child's genitals is going to see that the child will feel pleasure, and the younger they start, the easier it is to do that to them. And often the victim, even later on in adulthood, will say, well, you know, I kind of brought it on myself. I brought all this upon myself. I could have stopped it, blah, blah, blah. But in actual fact, no, you're wrong. All of these stages that I've talked about are stages of manipulation to keep you trapped, to make sure that they've got control and power of you, and so that you will not stop that sexual relationship. If you're listening to this as an adult who was sexually abused, just remember this, you didn't ask for it. You were the kid. And even if the sexual relationship between you and this person started when you were a teenager, it doesn't matter. You're still not to blame, okay? Children kind of react to pleasurable sensations. And the whole thing is, this is actually the stages of manipulation and the grooming. And even if you want to stop, it becomes very hard to stop because this person has so much power and control over you. So this is why a lot of people feel such shame and guilt, especially if it's a family member, if it's the father. I mean, that to people is devastating. And I've had a couple of clients where it was their father Okay, but I was able to say to them, look, that's manipulation and control, and you have nothing to feel ashamed about. Your father should belong in jail, but you are the innocent victim. And of course, some people who've been sexually abused get really confused because they think, well, I didn't give it up till I was 22, you know, and I kept on doing the same thing. But remember it. These people are masters of manipulation, and they control you. They keep you fearful. They keep you in this secret, and then they make out it's all your fault, and that, you know, people are going to think you're crazy even if you did say something. So, you know, I think sexual touching is just normal at times for what a child does with whoever they do it with. But there is a stage where they come to where they don't want to do it anymore, and it's too late then. The perpetrator has manipulation and control over you. So you really need to believe this is not your fault. It's nothing that was your fault. You were groomed. This happened to you. Doesn't matter who it was. You are not to blame. The best way to heal this is to actually have either counselling or group therapy, where everyone talks about things, and then it becomes normalized, and you realize you're not alone. This has happened to other people too. And yeah, you're not dirty, you're not bagged, you don't have to feel ashamed. Also, another reason therapy can be so great is because you've got an objective person. They're not a family member, they're not related to you, they're not a close friend, they're actually a therapist with an objective view. And this can really help remove the guilt and shame and start the process of healing. And what therapy does is it does remove that blame. Okay, so it's extremely important not to just keep on living with because what happens to you when you've been sexually abused, okay, you know, you've been hopefully watching my anxiety series, you know, this memory sits there in the neocortex, the hippocampus, and the amygdala gives strength to those emotions. So unless you get that sorted out and remove the shame and guilt, you're going to get anxiety and possibly depression. This finally gets to that point where you realize you're not to blame. It's not your fault. And then you can release all the stuff, the sad thoughts, the memories, the thinking about it and feeling all that shame and guilt. And look, it's really hard to come back to this self-care and self-love because so much has been taken away from you. So much when you're abused as a child. The more that we talk about sexual abuse, the more likely we are going to start healing. By talking about it, you can get close to having self-love and self-care. Keeping it this terrible secret of shame and guilt perpetuates the problem. So if you are at any of these stages, right now, even if you're a young teenager who's listening to this, or even a young adult, and this abuse is still going on and it's been going on since you were a little child, you need to talk to someone because that's the way it's going to stop. You have a voice, you have the power to say something about it. Do not sit in closed shame and blame, blaming yourself and being shamed. It was not your fault. It is never your fault. These people are masters of manipulation and masters of control. And this sort of thing can happen, right, as an adult. So look at those 7 stages of grooming and think about what I'm saying. Those 7 stages of grooming also happen when we're grown adults. You would have seen some of those documentaries where women say, you know, he pretended to be a doctor and he had a great job and he was showering me with presents. At the end of the day, the woman was ripped off and they took their money, etc. Or they were already married with someone else. So remember these 7 stages. And if you are recognizing anything I'm saying in here, be very, very careful. So this is the 7 stages that you also need to look as an adult when you're choosing a partner. Okay, so I hope that really helped. Please, if this has brought up anything for you, please ring up Lifeline or a place in your city that does free telephone counselling. And remember, no matter what the predator is saying, no matter how much that they have control, you have a voice. You have a voice. You use it. Bye for now.